I'm here with Janaka Rangama. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's sort of an Anglified version, I'm sure. And we are talking about Azure Stack and Intelligent Edge, which are two very interesting and yet not that well-known topics, I think. So, welcome and thank you. And let's start with Azure Stack. What is it?
Yeah, so Lars, Azure Stack is actually an extension of Microsoft Azure. So think it like this. You're an organization who wants the same Azure services, but you can't still go to Microsoft Data Center due to data sovereignty, compliance, or any other requirement. But you still need those Azure services for your applications. So Azure Stack just does that. So Azure services in your data center. It's an integrated appliance. A couple of OEMs, about 8 OEMs, along with Microsoft, work on that product.
Okay.
So it has the same Azure experience and the same tools that you use with public Azure as of now to administer that product. So that's pretty much it.
Right. So it's kind of like Azure, but it looks like Azure and it smells like Azure, but it doesn't run on Azure. Is that right? It runs on your own hardware?
That's exactly correct. But when it comes to hardware, as I mentioned, it's an integrated system. So you purchase one of these systems from an OEM. So the software is Microsoft, the hardware is that of that OEM.
Okay. And that could be HP or Dell or whoever, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Gotcha. Okay, so if you want to have, I'm trying to understand this. You want to have all the certificates or the certification, maybe the ISO certifications that Azure can bring, but you don't want it to be in the cloud where you're sort of out of your control. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So in another way, I need to break a myth here. When I talk to customers and colleagues and everyone, they ask, okay, can I use this as a hypervisor? So it's myth number 1 about Azure Stack. It's not your typical VM vending machine. Right? It's not a VM vending machine. I have to repeat that. Interestingly, you can deploy VMs there, like Azure VMs. That's what's available. Same Azure concept, same fabric, things like that. But it's more, sophisticated and focused towards that hybrid cloud concept, where you have the same service. For an example, you want to run a function app or a web app, both in your data center and public cloud. So Azure Stack is the option. Right?
Yeah, gotcha.
You want to run an application that is running on IaaS VMs, but you won't have the same Azure capabilities like availability sets, VNets, things like that. Azure Stack and Azure is the option. So it's not a typical VM vending machine.
It's really interesting, and it's just another option, I think, that people necessarily don't know about, because when you hear about Azure, you always hear about just cloud. And you don't think of, like, you can almost like install Azure on your thing. Like, it's not quite like that, but it's just an option that does that.
Yeah. So that's in a way correct. So another use case would be for this product was, now think a scenario like disconnected or isolated sites. For an example, I'll put a good example. Now, if you are in an industry like mining or disaster relief or military, and you want to still use the Azure services, but you don't have any internet connection to the public Azure, right? So if you have your own version of Azure in some of your data centers, or it can be a different type of a data center as well, it's possible to provide those Azure services, because in Azure Stack there are 2 modes of operations. You can have a connected Azure Stack that will be built against your public Azure consumption. And you can have a disconnected Azure Stack that is authenticated via IDFS, still registered to a subscription, but you have to report the usage, like the old days when we did server licensing. Yeah. So that's the main modes that you have.
That is, it's very interesting, I think. I mean, I like anything Azure, but still. And then you were talking about Intelligent Edge. So what's that part of it?
So the way that Intelligent Edge works is, the definition for it is a set of connected devices, that you use to analyze data, but those devices are within the close proximity to the users that consume those data or the data itself. Now, think it like this: drones, cameras, and all the other smart devices that you have within your premises or within your scope. But you use this data to process something probably in the public cloud, maybe, right? So in that case, Those devices would be your intelligent edge, whereas where you do the processing would be your intelligent cloud. So the key here is now, if I have such a disconnected scenario, how would I address sending this data back to the cloud, or how do I do the processing? So you put the Azure Stack in the middle. Whatever local processing you want to do, you want to do there. And if you want to send it back to the cloud for something like to train a machine learning algorithm or something like that, you can do that whenever the connection is available.
So it really complements each other if you have that specific scenario, and especially this would probably relate lots of data sovereignty. Is that right?
Yeah, so ideally data sovereignty and compliance requirement, and most of the customers I've seen really interested in scenarios like disconnected as well, because I've been working with a couple of customers throughout the globe who are interested in scenarios like having some sort of a Azure service available in some sort of like harsh environments. Yep. Now I work for Dell EMC, so we have a different version of Azure Stack called the Tactical Azure Stack.
Tactical, I like it.
So the way that works is, if you have seen the videos of Microsoft Ignite in 2017 and 2018, you would have seen that Microsoft has showcased a vehicle with an Azure Stack on it, right? Yep. So that's the one that we call as a Tactical Azure Stack. Electrically equivalent of the same stack we have, and functionally equivalent, but the only difference is it is in a military grade ruggedized case. So if you are into those movies, sci-fi movies, and all those movies, you've seen that soldiers carrying big black boxes, right? Yes. So it's like 3 or 4 big black boxes. You just set up, you put in your aircraft, you put in your tractor or whatever, right? Give it the power, it provides you Azure. So that's it.
That is delicious, isn't it? That's really cool.
Well, yeah. So from our perspective, we both come from down under, right? And we have a very hot summer, right? So what if you are a company who has some harsh conditions like unbearable temperature or shock and vibration?
These like mining.
Like mining, yeah. So if you want to try this product, there's a minimum specification that is required to run this. So there's a different version of Azure Stack called the ASDK, Azure Stack Developer Kit. Okay. So if you want to play around, you can just deploy that in a minimum required hardware, or you can really do nested virtualization and deploy it in Azure if you really want to do it. But
that's amazing.
You really need a bigger virtual machine, unless you have enough Azure credits. So
that's really interesting. I think we're going to have to stop it there because I'm going to go out now and buy a Tactical Azure Stack. Thanks very much, Janaka. I appreciate your time.
Cheers.
Cheers.